fourth graders, welcome to our Brainy Museum Tour video. We're going to be looking at the Gregory Alcar Museum of Art, which is located on CSU's campus. You might have seen it. There's a giant soup can outside, and there are a bunch of flower gardens right in front of it. It is closed currently because of the pandemic, but once it does open up again, everyone is free to visit. So definitely check it out if you can. But today we're going to be looking at the virtual exhibits that are in the Gregory Alcar Museum. So we're going to just introduce ourselves first off, and then we'll dive right in.
Hello, my name is Miss Kay. I'm an art education student here at CSU, which means that I'm learning how to be an art teacher. My concentration, which means my specialty area, is in drawing.
Hello, my name is Miss Vivian. I am also studying to become an art teacher, and my concentration is in painting. So the first thing we're going to look at is an Africa exhibit.
Enter the exhibition first.
We're going to enter the virtual exhibition first. So if you follow along on the screen, we're just going to go ahead and...
This is the Gregory Alcar main website. And then we'll go to the Exhibitions tab. Current exhibitions. And we're going to start in this third link here, Women's Textiles Across Africa. Go to the virtual exhibition. And enter exhibition.
All right, so this is super cool. We're going to be looking at some artworks from Africa just to start with. Now, a lot of time when we talk about Africa, we kind of talk about it as if it's just one place, but it is a massive continent and many different kingdoms and countries and cultures, and we're only going to be looking at 2 of them today. Trying to talk about Africa as if it's just one place with everything the same would just kind of be silly. It'd be almost talking about North and South America as if it was all the same as well. So when we first go into this, we're going to be looking at a couple artworks. Feel free to look around. You can use your arrow keys or even just click on artworks or just kind of use your mouse to look around. The first piece we're going to look at is called an Adira Cloth. And this is made by the Yoruba people. This is an unidentified Yoruba artist, so we don't know who made it specifically. But the Yoruba people live in Nigeria in Africa. And to make this cloth, they actually use stencils made from yams to dye the cloth, which is awesome because it actually turns it blue or indigo. And by washing off the yam paste, it leaves all that blue behind, and it leaves all these awesome patterns, which actually leave some pretty cool messages that are very intentional that they decide to leave in there.
So they paint on with the yam paste and then dip it into the dye?
Yes, they do actually, and they use something called a cassava resist, and that are stenciled in there to leave those patterns in there behind. So when you look at this piece, what do you see at first? What do you associate with the color blue? There's a whole lot of blue going on in here.
We're going to give you guys at home a few seconds to think about your answer.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Miss Kay? What do you think when you think of the color blue?
Well, I think the first thing I think of is, in baby showers and things, everything's always pink or blue, and that tells you if the baby shower is for a girl or a boy. Mm-hmm. So I kind of think of blue as a boy color, even though that's kind of silly because I really like the color blue a lot, even though I'm not a boy.
I think it's awesome that you bring up that it's for boys because this is actually meant for women, which is super different than what we have here. But the women in Yoruba culture are more associated with blue clothing. So when you think of that as well, what do you want people to think about when they see your clothing? And how can that be used to just get to know someone else or maybe get to know you? So take a second to think about that. All right, Ms. Kay, what do you think about that?
Well, today I wanted to look professional because I knew I'd be making this video, so I wore some nice professional looking clothes that are, simple and clean. But there are other times, maybe I'm out with my friends and I want to look more fun, so I wear something with some fun patterns and things.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I do the same thing. When we're looking at this, let's also consider the patterns we see. Do you guys see any specific patterns in there or any of the symbols? Do you recognize anything? Just take a second to look a little bit closer, and we'll talk about that as well. What do you think, Ms. Kay? Do you recognize anything in there?
Well, I see a lot of sort of nature patterns. I see like some really big flowers in the squares and some little tiny flowers. At least I think they look like flowers. Those little circular shapes in the big squares, those kind of look like roses to me. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what I see.
That's an awesome observation to make. So all these patterns definitely send a message to whoever you are making it for, or maybe it's just for yourself. So we're going to be looking at another example of clothing that also sends a message in our next piece. So we're just going to travel around the museum, go to our next piece, just right there. All right, and Miss Kay is going to introduce that for you guys.
So this is a wedding shawl from a group of people who are called the Zulu people. Now, the country, the nation that they belong to doesn't really exist as its own country anymore, but the people still exist, and they still speak the Zulu language. And they exist in what we now call just South Africa. That's what we call that country. So this particular piece of clothing that we're looking at here is a wedding cape. So this would be created by the woman who's getting married, so she could wear it at her wedding. And there are actually little messages to the person that she's getting married to, sewn into it with the colors and the patterns and the beads. So even today, a lot of Zulu women use beads in their clothing and in their hair to send specific messages. So you at home, have you ever been to a wedding, and did the people involved wear anything special? What about you, Miss Vivian? Have you ever been to a wedding?
I have been to a wedding. I went to one recently, and the people there were all wearing very fancy clothes. The bride was wearing a very nice dress, and the groom was wearing a tuxedo. Everyone was wearing like just really nice clothes, every guest, and also the bridal party was wearing like the same colors, anything like that.
So looking at this wedding shawl here, what are some colors that you notice, and how do they make you feel? What colors do you notice, Miss Vivian?
I see a lot of pinks, blues, whites, and blacks, and a little bit of red.
And how do they make you feel, those colors?
I think it seems very happy and very celebratory, almost like a party or something.
What makes you say that?
They're all very bright, and the beads are very colorful as well. There's some awesome patterns and textures in there.
So that would make sense for a wedding shawl. That's a pretty celebratory occasion. So like we mentioned, so this would be a way for a woman who is getting married to tell the person that she's getting married to how much she loves them. So what are some ways that you at home like to show people that you love them without necessarily saying those words? How about you, Miss Vivian?
I like to give my friends gifts or bake things or maybe even make food for them.
When you give your friends gifts, how do you decide what you're going to give them?
I usually think about stuff that they specifically would like themselves and make it pretty personal, so I know that they would like it.
So that's kind of like how the shawl would be made personally with a specific person in mind and those colors and patterns chosen because of it. All right, well, we're going to move on to our next video now.